The Galactic Federation stretched across thousands of star systems, encompassing dozens of sentient species united under a common banner of cooperation and mutual defense. It was an era of uneasy peace, with the Federation struggling to maintain stability against emerging threats along its ever-expanding borders. Pirates, rogue AI clusters, and mysterious biological entities from uncharted space tested the military capabilities of the Federation Defense Force with increasing frequency and ferocity. Amid this tension, a peculiar pattern began to emerge in combat encounters involving human units. A pattern that would eventually force the Multi-Species Federation Council to rethink their understanding of their human allies and create an entirely new combat protocol. The first documented incident occurred at Outpost Silos, a remote monitoring station positioned at the edge of the Cygnus Arm. A mixed-species patrol squad had been dispatched to investigate unusual energy signatures in a nearby asteroid field. The patrol included representatives from 5 species, 2 Lorians, arthropoid analysts known for their exceptional sensory capabilities, 3 Ventari, reptilian close combat specialists, a Klaxi technician, a methane-breathing entity whose bulbous form contains specialized gas chambers for different chemical processes, and 4 humans. Senior Observer Thrix, a veteran Lorian with over 30 Federation cycles of service, submitted the formal report. Patrol encountered Cthar pirate vessels hidden within the larger asteroids. Initial scans revealed they outnumbered us 3-1, with superior weaponry. Captain Reyes, human, attempted to coordinate a fighting retreat to the outpost. Communications were clear, and tactical responses followed standard Federation protocol until the Cthar jammed our primary comm channels. At this point, the Ventari and my fellow Lorian maintained secondary channel discipline as per training. However, the human contingent went completely silent. Not just on comms, their vital sign transmitters continued functioning, but they ceased all verbal communication with each other as well. What followed defies tactical explanation. The 4 humans, cut off from the main group, executed a series of perfectly coordinated flanking maneuvers through the asteroid field. They moved as if sharing a single mind, anticipating each other's positions and creating interlocking fields of fire that resulted in the disabling of 7 Cthar vessels. Their movements displayed none of the hesitation one would expect from troops operating without communication. When communication was restored, the humans resumed normal verbal exchanges, seemingly unaware of anything unusual about their performance. When questioned, Captain Reyes only remarked that they did what needed to be done and appeared confused by my inquiries about their coordination methods. The report was filed under unexplained combat phenomena and largely forgotten, attributed to equipment malfunction or statistical anomaly. That is, until a similar incident occurred in the Ghoul Nebula 3 Federation cycles later. A mixed-species fighter squadron patrolling the nebula's volatile outer boundary encountered what was later classified as a Class 4 biomorphic space entity, a massive, amorphous creature composed of plasma-infused organic matter that consumed energy from both stars and spacecraft with equal voracity. Squadron leader Vish Tak, a Ventari ace pilot with a distinguished combat record, submitted the following after-action report. Entity separated Talon Wing, 4 human pilots, from main formation with unexpected plasma tendril. Communication with human pilots was lost at 0942 Standard Time. Flight recorder data shows humans initially attempted emergency communication, but ceased all transmissions after 7 seconds. What followed was unprecedented. The 4 fighters, cut off from command structure, form an attack pattern I've never encountered in any combat manual. They appear to fly directly into the maw of the entity in what seemed like a suicide run, only to execute a series of perfectly timed evasive maneuvers that no pilot could have anticipated without foreknowledge of their wingmates' intentions. The humans achieved targeting synchronization without any detectable communication, striking vulnerable nodules within the entity in perfect sequence. Such coordination would typically require at least 27 distinct comm exchanges. There were none. When the entity retreated and communications were re-established, the human pilots expressed surprise at being out of contact. Their flight recorders confirmed no internal cockpit communications during the 17-minute engagement. I cannot explain how they achieved such perfect tactical harmony while completely silent. The report, like the Xylos incident before it, was analyzed and ultimately filed away. The prevailing theory among Federation tacticians was that human neural implants might contain previously undisclosed emergency protocols or that their training included some form of encoded nonverbal communication. It might have remained classified as an interesting but ultimately insignificant anomaly had it not been for the keen eye and insatiable curiosity of a junior analyst in the Strategic Command Division. Alara Vane was a fifth-generation Cygnian, humanoid in appearance, but with distinctive silver-blue skin and enlarged eyes adapted for the dim light of their homeworld. Though only 3 Federation cycles into her service, she possessed an uncanny ability to identify patterns in seemingly unrelated data. While conducting a routine review of combat effectiveness ratings across species, she noticed something unusual. Human units showed statistically significant performance spikes in situations where communication networks failed. Most species' combat effectiveness declined by 40 to 60% when communications were compromised. Humans only dropped by 15 to 20%, and in some cases, particularly when facing overwhelming odds, their effectiveness actually increased. These aren't just statistical outliers, she muttered to herself, compiling the data into a separate folder on her workstation. There's something systematic happening, and nobody's talking about it. Her immediate superior, Commander Hriztal, a Klaxi administrator known for his methodical approach and skepticism, dismissed her initial inquiry. Humans are emotional, instinctive creatures, he bubbled through his translator, the methane sacs on his torso contracting rhythmically. Their occasional successes under pressure are likely the result of desperate survival instinct or exaggerated reporting. The concept of some special ability manifesting under duress lacks both scientific evidence and theoretical foundation. Still, he didn't forbid her from continuing her investigation in her spare time, which Alara took as tacit permission to dig deeper. Over the next 2 Federation cycles, Alara compiled every combat report involving human units from the past 5 cycles. She sought patterns, correlations, anything that might explain what she increasingly believed was a genuine phenomenon. She began tagging incidents that shared 3 key characteristics: extreme danger, sudden communication silence from humans, and inexplicably effective coordination afterward. Working quietly and methodically, Alara sought to systematically eliminate conventional explanations. Her first target was technology. She discreetly approached Technician First Class Zorvin, a human Regelia hybrid with access to Federation equipment specifications. I need to know if human military implants have capabilities that aren't in the official documentation, she asked during shared meal period. Zorvin's elongated, ridged forehead creased with confusion. What kind of capabilities? Anything that might enable coordination without standard communication channels, subvocal transmitters, neural networkers, quantum entanglement nodes. After thorough investigation, Zorvin confirmed that human neural and communication implants were actually less sophisticated than those of most Federation species. There was simply no technological explanation for their ability to coordinate so effectively in silence. Next, Alara examined human training programs. While rigorous, none contained exercises that would explain the level of instantaneous, nonverbal coordination observed in the field, especially in completely novel situations. As her unofficial investigation progressed, more cases emerged that fit the pattern. On the ice planet Frost 2, a human rescue team searching for missing xenobiologists was caught in a blizzard and surrounded by native apex predators, pack-hunting creatures resembling a cross between earth wolves and giant centipedes. The team's communications functioned perfectly, but thermal imaging from their rescue ship showed something strange. When the creatures attacked en masse, the humans abruptly ceased all verbal communication. The thermal signatures showed them moving with eerie precision through the whiteout conditions, using the terrain and improvised traps to repel the numerically superior predators without a single command being issued. When they resumed communication 43 minutes later, they had secured the missing scientists and established a defensive perimeter with perfect tactical positioning. The incident report included a note from the ship's Xylosian medical officer. Human vital signs during silent period showed elevated but synchronized heart rates and brain activity patterns suggesting heightened awareness but decreased stress, contrary to expected fight-or-flight response. Another compelling case involved the light cruiser Starfall, a human-commanded vessel protecting a convoy of supply ships. When ambushed by a pirate fleet 3 times its size, the captain was heard giving a cryptic order, "Prepare for the inevitable," before the main communication channel went silent. Tactical data showed the ship performing a series of feint maneuvers, unpredictable firing patterns, and sacrificing non-essential systems to create openings for the convoy to escape into hyperspace. The crew operated with perfect coordination despite the bridge communication system being fully functional yet unused. The Starfall was ultimately destroyed, but it had inflicted disproportionate damage on the pirate fleet and saved the entire convoy. A survivor rescued from one of the escape pods, Lieutenant Cora Mason, reported, "I can't explain it. Everyone just knew what to do. It was like we were sharing thoughts. I've never experienced anything like it before or since." Armed with dozens of such cases, Alara finally composed a formal report for Admiral Zarian, a Klaxi flag officer known for his rigid adherence to protocol but respect for evidence. The Admiral's bulbous form swayed contemplatively as he absorbed her presentation. His methane sacs inflated and deflated in the pattern Alara recognized as deep concentration. "Your compilation is thought-provoking, Analyst Vane," he finally said through his translator. "The correlation appears statistically significant. However, correlation is not causation. Without a clear mechanism or an undeniable demonstration of this ability, I cannot bring this matter before the War Council. Find me an irrefutable example or a sound theoretical foundation, and I will reconsider." Alara left the meeting disappointed but undeterred. She knew she was onto something important, something that could reshape Federation combat doctrine if properly understood. What she didn't know was that her chance for irrefutable proof was approaching faster than anyone anticipated. The swarm arrived at the Meridian cluster without warning. A collective of self-replicating machine entities with distributed intelligence. They emerged from an uncharted wormhole and immediately began attacking the cluster's outer colonies. Their tactics were ruthlessly efficient, adapting to Federation defense patterns within minutes of engagement. Meridian, with its rich mineral resources and strategic position connecting 3 Federation trade routes, was too valuable to lose. The Federation deployed the 7th Fleet, a diverse force that included a substantial number of human soldiers and pilots. The initial defense did not go well. The swarm overwhelmed the Federation forces through sheer numbers and rapid tactical adaptation. Defense lines collapsed one after another. Federation communication channels overflowed with chaotic orders, casualty reports, and desperate requests for support. Marshal Torvix, a Rigelian veteran commanding the combined forces, struggled to maintain formation as the swarm's attacks became increasingly varied and vicious. His by-the-book approach proved inadequate against an enemy that seemed to predict and counter conventional Federation maneuvers before they were fully deployed. On Meridian Prime, the cluster's capital world, human infantry units found themselves pushed back to final defensive positions around key infrastructure and civilian evacuation zones. They faced waves of smaller, but incredibly fast swarm units that operated with perfect coordination. In orbit, human fighter squadrons suffered heavy losses as they attempted to protect transport ships evacuating civilians. They too became fragmented, cut off from their command structure by swarms of interceptors. Communications Officer Relta, a Lorian serving on Marshal Torvix's command vessel, noticed at first the abrupt silence from human units throughout the battle space. One by one, human communication channels went quiet, first on the ground, then in space. "Marshal," She chittered urgently, mandibles clicking in agitation. We've lost contact with 83% of human units. Vital signs transmitters still active, but all verbal communication has ceased. Marshal Torvix's elongated face darkened with concern. Swarm jamming. Negative, sir. Other species in the same combat zones are communicating normally. The humans have simply gone silent. Then, on the tactical display, something changed. The icons representing human units began moving in ways that defied conventional tactics. Ground forces abandoned textbook defensive positions, instead executing lightning raids into the swarm's flanks or rear echelons. Fighter squadrons broke from established flight patterns, forming new configurations that seemed chaotic yet somehow anticipated swarm responses before they occurred. On the surface of Meridian Prime, Corporal Zixtao, a Xylosian soldier with chromatophore-based skin capable of rapid color changes, fought alongside a human squad near the capital's main power distribution center. His after-action report provided a ground-level view of the phenomenon. The humans were fighting normally, communicating, coordinating, verbally. Then the swarm breached our position from 3 directions simultaneously. I expected retreat orders. Instead, the humans just stopped talking. Their eyes changed, focused, distant yet intensely present. They moved differently too, not as individuals, but as parts of a single organism. No signals, no hand gestures I could recognize, yet they flowed around obstacles and enemy units with perfect awareness of each other's positions. A human named Sergeant Rivera moved left, while Private Chun went right without looking at each other, creating a crossfire that trapped advancing swarm units. Another pair simultaneously used structural weaknesses in identical ways at opposite ends of our position without any possible way to coordinate such actions. I followed as best I could, but they never acknowledged my presence. They used weapons and environment with near-suicidal creativity. Private Donovan deliberately collapsed a weakened wall onto himself and 3 swarm units, somehow knowing exactly where to stand to avoid crushing injury while eliminating his targets. The entire engagement lasted 22 minutes. When it ended, the swarm units were destroyed or disabled. The humans suddenly started talking again, checking on each other, asking about casualties as if awakening from a trance. They seemed confused when I asked how they had coordinated their movements. In space, the pattern repeated. Human pilots, no longer communicating with their squadrons or command, executed maneuvers that bordered on impossible. They anticipated swarm movements, positioned themselves to create killing fields without a single transmission between craft, and made split-second decisions that somehow aligned perfectly with actions taken by other human pilots kilometers away. Flight Lieutenant Maya Hernandez, one of the few human pilots to later provide a coherent account of her experience, described the sensation. It's hard to explain. One moment, I was shouting into my comm as 3 swarm vessels locked onto my fighter. The next, a kind of clarity. I lost awareness of myself as an individual. I could somehow sense the position and intention of every other human pilot in the battle. Not visually or through instruments, I just knew. Time seemed to slow down. I wasn't thinking anymore, just acting with absolute certainty. I knew exactly when Commander Takahashi would execute his attack run on the swarm carrier's port nacelle, creating the opening that Captain Rodriguez and I needed for our torpedo run, even though we'd never planned or discussed such a maneuver. It wasn't like having a plan. It was like being part of a perfect dance where every participant instinctively knows the next movement. I can't tell you how many swarm vessels I destroyed because it wasn't really me doing it. It was us acting as one organism. When it ended, when I came back to myself, I had no memory of specific actions I'd taken, just a general sense of what had happened and absolute exhaustion, like I'd been running at maximum output for hours. Despite taking heavy casualties, the human units inflicted disproportionate damage on the swarm. Their actions, while chaotic and unorthodox by Federation standards, created enough breathing room for the remaining Federation forces to regroup, counterattack, and eventually push the swarm back from Meridian Prime, though the battle for the rest of the cluster continued. The Meridian incident became the focal point of attention throughout the Federation. No one could deny the decisive role played by the human units and the mysterious silence that accompanied their sudden, inexplicable effectiveness. 2 weeks after the initial swarm attack, an emergency session of the War Council was convened. Representatives from all 27 member species gathered in the secure chamber aboard the Federation Command Station Unity. The atmosphere was tense. Military defeats were rare for the Federation, and the narrow victory at Meridian Prime had come at tremendous cost. Marshal Torvix presented the initial battle analysis, methodically detailing the tactical failures and eventual turnaround. When he reached the section on human performance, he paused uncharacteristically. The data suggests an anomaly in human combat behavior that significantly altered the battle's outcome, he said, his usually confident voice tinged with uncertainty. I believe analyst Ilara Vane has conducted relevant research on this phenomenon. With the Council's permission, I would like her to present her findings. All eyes turned to the young Cygnian analyst as she took her place at the presentation podium. Her silver-blue skin flushed a deeper blue with nervous energy, but her voice remained steady as she activated the holographic display. Distinguished Council members, for the past 2 Federation cycles, I have been tracking an unusual pattern in combat situations involving human units, she began. The Meridian incident represents the largest and most clearly documented manifestation of this phenomenon to date, but it is far from unique. Over the next hour, Ilara methodically presented her evidence, eliminating conventional explanations and emphasizing the consistency of the pattern. Humans facing overwhelming odds, complete silence, nonverbal coordination dramatically increase combat effectiveness, often accompanied by high risk. The phenomenon cannot be attributed to technology, as human neural implants lack the capability for the kind of coordination observed, she explained. Nor can it be explained by training protocols, as the behavior manifests in completely novel situations that could not have been rehearsed. When she finished, the chamber erupted in overlapping questions and exclamations. Admiral Zarian called for order with a harmonic pulse from his translator. We should hear from the humans themselves, suggested High Commander Vexera, a Lysithian whose crystalline body structure refracted light in complex patterns as she moved. If this is indeed a natural ability of their species, they may have insights our analysis has missed. Colonel Sarah Henderson, the highest-ranking human officer present, stepped forward. The veteran of numerous campaigns showed the scars of Meridian. Her left arm had been replaced with a temporary prosthetic, and burn marks still discolored the side of her face. We call it many things, she said, her voice carrying easily through the chamber. Battle trance, the zone, deep symphony, the quiet. Different military units have different names for it, but we all recognize the experience. She paused, searching for words. It's not something we can activate at will. It happens when we're pushed beyond conventional limits, when survival seems impossible through normal means. The self, the individual consciousness, fades, and we become part of a collective awareness focused entirely on the situation at hand. Time perception alters. Sensory information sharpens. We don't communicate because we don't need to. We simply know what others in the trance are thinking and planning. It's not mind reading as some telepathic species experience it. It's more intuitive, instinctual. We become parts of a temporary hive, mind driven by a single purpose. The council chamber remained silent as she continued. Afterward, we retain only general impressions of what happened, not specific actions taken. The experience leaves us physically and mentally drained, sometimes for days. It's not a state we can maintain for long periods, nor would we want to. The loss of individual identity is unsettling, even if temporary. Questions erupted from all sides of the chamber. Why has this ability never been officially documented in Federation species records? Demanded Sub-Admiral Crovan, a Rigelian known for his suspicious nature. Because it's not something we can demonstrate on command or in controlled conditions, Colonel Henderson replied evenly. Most humans experience it only a handful of times in their lives, if at all. Some never do. Until now, we had no reason to believe it was unique. We assumed other species had similar responses to extreme situations. This seems dangerously close to uncontrolled berserker behavior, objected Counselor Zex, a Medusan philosopher whose gelatinous form pulsated with skepticism. A mass battle frenzy that sacrifices reason for instinctive response cannot be reliably incorporated into military doctrine. With respect, Counselor, countered Henderson, the evidence suggests exactly the opposite. In battle trance, humans don't become less rational. They operate with a different kind of rationality, one based on perfect information sharing and collective processing. The solutions generated are often more creative and effective than conventional tactics precisely because they aren't limited by verbal communication delays or individual perception limitations. The debate continued for hours, with faction lines quickly forming. The skeptical faction, primarily composed of species with highly logical thought processes or rigid social structures, argued that the phenomenon was a form of mass hysteria or extreme psychological response, unreliable for tactical planning. The support faction, including those who had witnessed the phenomenon firsthand or been convinced by the evidence, countered that regardless of the mechanism, the effectiveness could not be denied. Federation scientists offered preliminary hypotheses. Dr. Lannis, a towery neurobiologist with six-fingered hands that constantly moved as she spoke, suggested, this may be an ancient survival mechanism from humanity's pack-hunting past, reactivated under extreme conditions. Many Earth species show rudimentary forms of group consciousness during hunting or defensive behaviors. Dr. Zelvor, a quantum consciousness specialist from Bellatrix Prime, proposed an alternative. Low-level psionic field generation is present in many species, including humans, though usually dormant. Under sufficient stress, these fields may amplify and synchronize, creating a temporary shared consciousness operating primarily at the subconscious level. Dr. Hyven, an expert in distributed intelligence systems, offered a third possibility: temporary hive mind formation under pressure, similar to what we observe in social insect species or distributed AI networks. Individual consciousness temporarily subordinates to collective problem-solving optimization. As theories multiplied, Marshall Torvix redirected the discussion to practical matters. The scientific explanation, while fascinating, is secondary to the tactical question, he stated firmly. We have confirmed that human units sometimes enter this state, that it significantly enhances their combat effectiveness, and that it begins with communication silence. The critical issue is how other Federation units should respond when humans go quiet. How do we integrate this unpredictable element into Federation military doctrine? This shifted the debate to operational concerns. If humans couldn't control when the phenomenon occurred, how could command structures accommodate it? What protocol should Allied units follow when human squad mates suddenly ceased communication? How could the tactical advantage be maximized while minimizing risks to both the humans and their non-human allies? After 3 days of intense deliberation, the War Council reached a conclusion. The potential tactical advantage and the necessity of protecting/supporting human units in this state outweighed the risks and uncertainties. They voted to create a special alert system. The Alert Level H, Human Silence, protocol was designed with input from both human officers and experienced commanders from other species. It would automatically activate on the Federation tactical network when a human unit, meeting certain criteria for size and combat situation, ceased all communication channels for a specified period under high combat pressure. The alert came with recommended actions for nearby Allied units. Priority 1. Avoid direct interference with the operating area of the human unit unless explicit support is requested, typically none would be. Priority 2. If tactically feasible, prepare long-range fire support or create safe extraction corridors. Priority 3. Be prepared for unexpected actions that might endanger allies if too close to the engagement zone. The protocol was deployed across the fleet with mixed initial reactions. Some commanders, particularly from non-human species, found it unsettling. an admission of human communication discipline weakness that required special accommodation. Others, particularly veterans who had fought alongside humans, expressed relief at having an official warning for something they had intuitively sensed but couldn't articulate. Human soldiers and pilots themselves had complex reactions. Some felt marked as different. Others felt their unique nature was being acknowledged and respected rather than ignored or suppressed. Over the next several months, Alert Level H was triggered in 24 combat engagements. Post-action analysis confirmed its effectiveness in reducing friendly fire incidents and improving overall tactical outcomes when human units entered battle trance. The Federation began incorporating the protocol into standard training for all species, explaining the phenomenon as matter-of-factly as they would explain the methane requirements of Klaxi crew members or the hibernation cycles of tundra marines. 6 months after the Meridian incident, a mixed-species patrol vessel encountered a previously unidentified hostile vessel near the Cygnus border. The patrol ship, the FNS Vigilant, suffered significant damage in the initial exchange and was boarded by hostile forces of unknown origin. The human marine contingent aboard the Vigilant was cornered in the cargo bay, cut off from the rest of the crew, and facing an enemy that outnumbered them 3-1. On the bridge, Captain Zorval, a Zylosian veteran, heard the Alert Level H notification chime as the Marine's communication channel went silent. Instead of ordering immediate reinforcements to the cargo bay, his instinctive response, he calmly instructed the remaining security teams to hold position at strategic junctions and prepare supporting fire only if requested. "But sir," protested his Regelian first officer, "the humans are outnumbered and cut off. Protocol dictates immediate support deployment." "Standard protocol, yes," Captain Zorval replied, his skin shifting to the confidence indicating blue-green pattern. "But Alert Level H supersedes standard response for good reason. I've seen what happens when humans go quiet. Trust me, and trust them." 27 minutes later, the human Marines' communication channel reopened. Their commander's voice was exhausted but clear. "Bridge, this is Sergeant Diaz. Hostiles in the cargo bay have been neutralized. We have 3 wounded but mobile. Request medical team at our position." Later, reviewing the security footage, Captain Zorval and his officers watched in amazement as the outnumbered Marines had moved in perfect, silent coordination, using the cargo bay's complex layout and contents to systematically eliminate the boarders without a single verbal command or visible signal. "I still don't understand how they do it," the Regelian first officer admitted. "Perhaps we don't need to understand it fully to respect it," Captain Zorval responded, his skin rippling in thoughtful patterns. The Alert Level H protocol wasn't created to control the humans. It was created to help the rest of us adapt to their uniqueness. Sometimes the most effective communication in battle is no communication at all. The protocol would continue to evolve as more data was collected, but its core purpose remained unchanged. A formal recognition that sometimes, when facing the impossible, humans fall silent not because they've given up, but because they've tapped into something profound and powerful, a collective consciousness that transcends ordinary limitations. And in the vast, dangerous expanse of the galaxy, such unique abilities were worth preserving and honoring, even if they could never be fully explained.